Good morning, everyone. Come on in and have a seat for some cold iced tea. My name is Emmy, and we are talking about the Blake Lively lawsuit. And today we are specifically talking about 31 or more possible arguments against Blake Lively's damages claim. Now, that most of this refers to her reputation, to her brands, and then we'll take a look about some maybe possible counter arguments that she may have against some of these factors as far as her reputation. Um, and I would like to thank Perez Hilton for giving Blake Lively a new nickname. My children heard him call Blake Lively Steak Lively, and then they said she's stale lively, which is very appropriate for her downfall in all of her marketing and brands and her ability to bring money to those brands who get affiliated with her. So these are just what I consider some factors and some liabilities against hiring Blake Lively. Hi, Jungle Vet Jill. I'm glad you're here. We're just covering some possible liabilities against hiring Blake Lively, which would affect her overall worth um, in Hollywood as far as possibly getting another job. I know I'm not explaining this very well, but just some 31, more than 31 arguments about her reputation and some factors that have gone into it. So, in one way, she is a liability just because she's got some questionable, unscripted behavior. She admitted in a simple favor of grabbing her co stars, if you will, and it was not scripted. And there supposedly was no intimacy coordinator. Now, could that situation be similar to maybe Blake's situation if you want to look at it from that lens? I don't know, but I feel like if you didn't follow those steps in the first place and now you're complaining about it, you're a walking contradiction in that area. You know what I mean? And so who's going to take a chance on you in another role if you're doing unscripted behavior that may potentially be unwanted and may potentially be an HR complaint, which may turn into a lawsuit, especially if the director is saying harder, harder, and harder, and the director admits that in public interviews with these starlet. So there's one. Number two, like I just touched upon, no intimacy coordinator. She didn't have one in Simple Favor. She had one in It Ends With Us, and she admits that. Um, she's also called out, I believe, in one of the interviews that she did that she was her own intimacy coordinator. And she's also putting her hands on her male co stars. Whether they're talking about it or not, in the movie It Ends or on the set, I believe Justin Baldoni mentioned that they talked about what they were doing ahead of time and then they would practice or do the choreography. Um, was that done on a Simple Favor? I don't think so. What about wardrobe takeover? There is a set budget for wardrobe. It was already bought, and then she wanted it sent to her house. But then that wasn't even good enough. She had to borrow wardrobe from other people, which is totally fine, I believe, if you do it for free. But she charged rent. So that ballooned the wardrobe budget. A counter argument was, hey, they let me, or whatever. Obviously, they kept the wardrobe, and that would be another argument, I guess, on Blake's side. Hey, they kept the wardrobe, and it was god awful. In my opinion, it was just god awful. She could have done a lot better. And I think her downfall with her wardrobe was it was so, she wanted it bulky, but she also wanted it sexy, quote unquote. But like it just didn't fit. Um, so she ballooned the wardrobe. What about marketing takeover? That's also a liability. Her and Ryan Reynolds took over the marketing ability and shut Justin Baldoni out. The production company didn't even get to keep any of the marketing materials that Maximum Effort did. So they were out essentially an investment, right? And they still had to pay for it. So there's millions of dollars out of your pocket. If you're a small production company, can you really afford that? And Wayfair was a relatively small production company. You know, even if they were backed by Steve Sarowitz, it still didn't matter. They were still a small production company, not compared to like Sony Pictures. In here, what about the Ryan Reynolds factor or the volatility of the Ryan Reynolds factor? I heard it was half I heard it was half the 30 million to make. Yeah, the marketing was like usually half the movie's budget. So that was about 15 million. And if you saw my other video, we saw that in the Maximum Effort quarterly results, that one quarter after the movie was out, um, there was a spike of income and then it kind of dropped down. Um, and with the marketing, the bad decisions with the marketing. Apparently, um, it looks like that they're one trick pony. So they did the marketing with the alcohol and everything, their brands, the Betty Boos, whatever, and then they named it after the characters. Well, in the John Candy after party, he did the same thing. So he had the alcohol, and then they named it after the members of the movie. So one trick pony. It's not very creative. If, in my opinion, they, other than the insensitivity, you know what I mean? Which again, they took over, and Wayfair had to pay for it. So it's more money out of your pocket, right? Again, if you're a small studio, you wouldn't be able to afford that. Not to mention the bad PR that goes with it. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. What about Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively's fight in the trailer? Did you hear about that one? There was a fight on set between Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, a big, huge whatever. And then she wasn't alone after that, per another content creator's video. And per, I believe that photographer, and I keep getting his name wrong. Was it Paul Fadique? He stated that that was a usual occurrence and that occurred on Age of Adeline when he would just show up. But we also discussed that too. Is it Blake Lively's fault, or is it Ryan Reynolds' fault, or is it just toxic behavior and it's just this maybe tit for tat relationship? I don't know. I'm just speculating my opinion, allegedly. But it's an issue. You don't want that on your movie. You don't want the publicity. You don't want to have to explain that, because I'm sure that's more money to your PR specialist. Hey, we have this weird issue. We have to cover up these two spouses fighting because it's going to bring bad PR to my movie, right? And what about script changes? That's another liability. It just doesn't look good. And if the script goes from great to Ooh, like the rooftop scene was just, well, it was nice banter, I guess, but in the end, I think they could have done a better job. And in that scene, I think they could have done a better job editing, because when you look at some of the banter, and I believe Justin Baldoni is sitting on the ledge and he's talking to her, and she just starts laughing seemingly out of like nowhere, just this, and he looks to the left, and the way that his face is, it's like he was surprised in that moment. Like he was surprised in the moment that her response was laughter, as to maybe something that was in the script. And when you see him look towards the left, he's a little bit bewildered. You know what I mean? So that's another liability, the editing. She's not a very good editor, because I don't think I would have left that in. And I was very confused when I saw that scene. What about her vulgar language? Does anybody think that that could possibly be an HR complaint or an HR issue? The ball busting, the what, not with teeth. Does anybody feel offended by that? If you were someone's spouse and someone said that to your spouse, how would that make you feel? Would that cause an issue? I mean, I think Justin Baldoni handled it very well by saying that he was crying his eyes out because his family just left. Because, like, what else can you say to that? That's a walking HR nightmare. How do you respond to that other than my family is blah, blah, blah? But then you're also risking Blake's hypersensitivity, right? Just checking with the chat. Yes, the teeth comment is very gross. It's very eye raising. It's very vulgar. It's it's shocking. And if she says this in real life, I just couldn't talk to her. You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to talk to her, because I would be like, "Oh my god, did you just say that?" What else do I have? What about her PR planting stories, right? Like what Leslie Sloan did, planting stories, causing controversy, having your own dignity in movie trash before it even comes out. That's not good PR. You know what I mean? I guess they're going by the bad press is good press or whatever, but that's just crappy. What about theft? Right? And I know I'm not giving really good counter arguments. I just probably skipped that because now I'm just heated. But what about theft? She stole intellectual property, and she was warned by Sony not to do it. And she did it anyway. She was only supposed to show 20 minutes, but instead she showed the entire unedited movie to Book Talk and ordered buses to bus them there. Admitted she had some sort of little thumbstick or something like that on Book Talk. It's still on the internet. That video has not been taken down yet. How big of a liability is that? That's pretty reputational damaging. Do you really want your movie to be leaked? I mean, all you have to do is burn it on a CD after that and just pass it out to people. What about being associated to the theft of Jen Abel's phone? That's a PR issue in itself, a legal liability. Let's just drag everybody into court. Maybe that's why Ryan Reynolds has to pay all of her legal bills, because she went that far. What about poisoning your director against their own agent? Who is going to want to risk hiring you? What happens if you offend Miss Blake Lively? Is she going to call your agent to get you fired from your job? What about her hypersensitivity? There's rumors that when there was a toothpick called for, the person who brought the toothpick was fired or something like that. Or the fact that she thought a post-birth image was corn. Her counter argument to that was, what was it in Jamie's deposition? Oh, she initially thought it was corn and then things were fine or something like that. But I wouldn't want to risk any being just offending her or Ryan Reynolds. The fat shaming, I mean, you can definitely tell that she dropped weight in that movie. What is it when she is meeting Atlas again and they're like the harbor place or something, and she's got that crop top on and the beanie and the oversized jacket and the oversized pants. You can see her top fat hanging over. It wasn't very pleasant. Like, she should have had more looser pants so it didn't hang over. Maybe she should have gone a size up and she could have made it work. But then if you take a look at her face and the rest of her body in the birthday scene where she's walking through and she takes off her jacket and she's got that tight whatever, you can tell that she was working out. But the point is, her appearance isn't supposed to change that much. But again, she's hypersensitive over her weight, and then she's going to sue you because she got fat shamed. But really, there needs to be consistency in her appearance, right? Or am I just way off? Let me check in the chat real fast. Her biggest liability is she holds a grudge and is paranoid, like waiting 2 weeks to mention her complaints to Jamie. Busy judging and keeping score. They are dangerous. Again, what producer or director is going to offer her a job after this? This doesn't even have to do with the lawsuit. We're just focusing on her straight behavior that was brought on now because of this lawsuit. What about her absences and her tardiness? Wasn't she absent and showed up at a Taylor Swift concert? Wasn't she late and made everybody wait on set? Just burning that money because you got to pay everybody and you got to pay overtime for everybody. So you're just bleeding money at that point. And again, if you're a small studio, can you really afford that? Do you want to take that liability on? What about increasing your budget? Not just with the wardrobe, but like what we talked about before, where you have to hire a stunt double because your starlet cracked her face on a buoy because she didn't want a stunt double. Allegedly, in my opinion, that's how it looks like. What about hiring and firing of directors and having to pay for the new directors that she chooses and the new composers and having work almost completed? Then you have to get rid of it all and just pay for some more. What about the cost of changing locations? Because Boston is too far from our house, but New Jersey is closer. Well, at least they're saving on gas, right? Another liability, her credibility issues. both in the Ends With Us lawsuit. And if you take a look at the FDEC lawsuit, there was a question of misstatements and a question of what if things really occurred the way that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds said they went. What about her credibility issues in interviews? And it goes as far as simply saying, yeah, I lie in interviews and I say that I can cook, but really I don't. I just go buy the cookies and pretend that they're mine. But really, who's going to know? And she has multiple admissions of admitting to lying to people in interviews. So if she can lie in interviews that we're taking as fact or true or a true representation of the person who's saying it, and if she can maybe falsely claim things that didn't happen in lawsuits, for example, what did she say during the dancing scene? And then the audio came out and it totally wasn't what she said it was. For what? To get to be revengeful? For not showing off her shoes? Which those shoes were ugly in that scene, by the way. I don't care if they were Louis Vuittons. They were ugly. And again, a litigation nightmare. Look what they did to Paul Fadique. And they exploited Ryan Reynolds' connections with the Canadian police because Ryan's brother is high up in the Canadian police. And not to mention, I do have to say that that photographer pointed out that Blake Lively leaked that police officer's address to the paparazzi so they can get a shot of all of them playing at the brother's house in Vancouver. How mucked up is that? Where's your loyalty, Blake, to your new boyfriend or your husband for privacy? Again, I'm going to mention a stunt liability. Because wasn't that in one of her points too, getting a body double or something like that? I wonder if that has to do with Ryan Reynolds' jealousy and not leaving her alone. You keep forgetting that about his brother? Yeah, and there was apparently false charges, and all those charges were dropped, and Canadian law is a lot different from ours, so a lot of things are sealed. And I heard that story that he got like hit by a car and like his knee was hyperextended, but then he's doing stunts the next day on Deadpool. And I was like, wait a minute, the news does not even. Where's the leg brace? I thought I was going to see him limping, but he's doing stunts. What else is a liability? I wrote flirting with other cast members, i.e., the vulgar language. And I saw in what I think it was A Simple Favor or Another Simple Favor of Blake Lively slapping Anna Kendrick's behind, and she didn't tell her. She didn't say anything, but they kept it in the movie because it was good. It was good moving or whatever. I mean, what about The Town with her and Ben Affleck? You don't think that's a PR nightmare? Didn't Reese Witherspoon call out someone who sent naked pictures and included their face? I don't know. I guess it's good PR, right? Bad news is good news. But I still probably wouldn't want to risk it because who would want to work with Blake Lively after that? Is she going to snatch your husband or send inappropriate photos to your husband or have inappropriate behavior? And then Ryan Reynolds gets involved and then it's just a crazy love triangle nightmare. Just looking at the chat, the way she treated Brendan Sklenar on the press tour was shameful. Exactly. Let's just SH someone live for everybody to see, but then turn around and judge someone for hugging. Did Ryan Reynolds not like the hugging? Is that why it was SH? Did Ryan Reynolds think that someone was copying a feel when he hugged his wife? Blake is a walking liability. Possibly. There's more than 31 possible arguments in this video. And we're only halfway through this list. Okay. Collateral damage. So, since this lawsuit, Blake Lively had to go and do the premiere and marketing for Another Simple Favor. And let's just ignore the chatter of Blake Lively and the Anna Kendrick hating each other, or Anna Kendrick specifically hating Blake Lively, right? There was comments turned off on Amazon because, according to Blake Lively, it was just vitriol. But there is also comments in regards to Anna Kendrick where they said, I love Anna's movies, but I can't watch it because of Blake. So people were boycotting Another Simple Favor because of one main actress. Because there was a lawsuit and she came out looking really bad when she needed to look really good because she was going to promote Another Simple Favor. But people don't want to see it. They posted negative comments specifically about her. Why is Blake Lively's name higher than Anna Kendrick's? Did she take over this movie? Oh, let's dig up past interviews. It was collateral damage for Anna Kendrick. And did Anna Kendrick really deserve that? And on top of that, did the director really deserve that? And what about Emily Blunt? Did she deserve that? Because now she got dragged into those initial disclosures because Blake Lively decided to say, hey, this is all evidence of that smear campaign retaliation thing. So I'm just going to tell you what happened, and then I'm going to put you in these initial disclosures, okay? Just so that we're clear, I told you how horrible it was, and this is the result of my own actions for bringing this possibly frivolous lawsuit. This one lawsuit that is not even mentioned in Mountain, and maybe it should be. What about threatening behavior? What about that? The director safety was threatened by the actress's husband. Now, if we take a look at Steve Sarowit's deposition, and let's take a real good look at that, because I have a lot of people saying, hey, whatever. But if you look at the last couple lines, it says someone from the other side authorized it. And there's proof. So you're going to tell me that another director, movie studio, anybody's going to take a chance? Because we already know that Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively said they worked like the mafia. Well, maybe they do. And maybe that's why there was arson involved, because what is the mafia famous for? I hate to say it, but like, let's put my tinfoil hat on. Who's going to take a chance? Who's going to take a chance of pissing off Ryan Reynolds and being threatened? I wouldn't. And then we get to another liability. And this is where I think hurts her the most. And it's not very exciting. It's not very newsworthy. But in today's society, in today's political, cultural society, it is really important. What about the cultural aspect of this lawsuit? The spiritual aspect of this lawsuit? The religious aspect of this? The racial aspect of this? Right? What about what's going on social media right now in the topic of people of color being treated unfairly, either by the government or by people who have more than them? People are being judged by the color of their skin. And it is a very big topic, and it's a very inflammatory topic. And now you have past interviews of Blake Lively of when she was a teenager, an older teenager, of admitting to doing blackface so that she could chase other boys. What about her being associated to a plantation wedding? What about Preserve, that was focusing on the antebellum movement, where the antebellum word and term is taboo now, so much so that Lady Antebellum, one of my favorite bands, is now Lady A. Aunt Jemima is not Aunt Jemima anymore. But Blake Lively will always be tied to the antebellum movement through her website, Preserve, through her blackface admittance and interviews, through possibly her association with Target, who is not very popular with the African American community, who incited a very successful boycott. And then Target decided to get political, and then now they're laying off a whole bunch of people, which goes against Lively's claim of, hey, my hair care line bombed. Well, your hair care line was at Target. It's not getting any new traffic. They're laying off people. You can't get new customers in. If you can't get new customers in, who's going to see and who's going to buy your product? Because maybe you don't have returning customers because maybe your hair care line was so bad and maybe the reviews on it were true. But you have to mitigate it by doing your niece's hair, which I get. You have to mitigate the liabilities. But then when you do it to people who are interviewing you, they're saying, oh, it's like the morning look. Well, what is the morning look usually? That you just got out of bed look. Your hair is kind of messy. And what she's doing with that whatever, it's coming out look messy. It doesn't look good. And not even Taylor Swift is using it. Because if it was that great, wouldn't your celebrity friends be hawking it too? And then the religious and cultural part, what they're doing with the birth video and exploiting that. They admitted that they were praying with the baby and that they're just trying to reverse that. You know, and then we're getting into again the racial component. There's an increase in videos where pregnant women of color are being denied care and they're being exploited because they're not getting care. They're giving birth to babies in the car. They're being turned away at hospitals. The conversation around that is getting noticed. And here Blake Lively's very privileged. Very, very privileged. And she's going against Wayfair, who is based in cultural and in spiritual practices, and that's how they run their business. And she's exploiting that. She's planting stories negatively about the Baha'i faith. There have been attacks on Steve Sarowitz about in regards to his Jewish faith. And all of that is in the media and being circulated and being talked about by other content creators. It's not a very good look to have that going around your next project, you know what I mean? Not to mention her questionable association and her name now showing up and being associated with Epstein in the Epstein files. I would have never have thought to have seen that. And some people are saying that they're not surprised because of her circle of well-known, high-powered male friends. Woody Allen, Weinstein, who is the other guy? Ariel Emanuel, who has a very questionable past and who has been sued for SH and SA, along with WWE. I mean, that circle of conspiracy just splinters out to basically everybody. I have assumptions, like she makes assumptions that things are the absolute worst, like that image. She admits she thought it was corn, but I bet you she laughed about it afterwards because she was so embarrassed and acknowledged that it wasn't corn. I have human rights issue because now that's coming up. And I never thought Selma Hayek would be involved in that one, but she's being tracked back to Balenciaga and that whole controversy. I mean, this whole lawsuit has brought on so much publicity in such a negative way. Like, who would have thought that we would be talking about Blake Lively and the Epstein files? Or Blake Lively and Balenciaga? What about publicly ridiculing your own cast? Or Xing out your own cast members? Look what happened to Penn Bagley. Look how she treated Leighton Meester. Look how she treated Justin Baldoni in telling him to get a nose job. Just attacking. Look what she did to, was it Oliver Stone and Savages? She ridiculed him and she got him a t-shirt that said, "I survived Oliver Stone," and she laughed about it in the media. Like, everybody's beneath her. Or everybody is just a walking joke. And what about, I put her acting ability as a liability, but she really isn't a great actress. She hasn't really gotten high profile roles, except for It Ends With Us, Another Simple Favor. But I think that all of this controversy, the bad news and the good news, just heightened her her star. Because is she really worth $1.8 million to in another movie? I mean, are you gonna, would anybody spend that much on her? And what about the Ryan Reynolds vulnerability when he interferes with your set and your timelines and your scripts and then berates you and then threatens you and then goes to your agent, attacks your religion, attacks your culture? What else are they attacking? Yeah, mind you, I do have to say a counter argument, to be fair, is that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds do have that nonprofit. It's called Group Effort Initiative. They do hire underprivileged people and put them in, hook them up with jobs in the entertainment industry. It's a pretty neat program, and I hope that those people are not exploited, and I hope they get paid well for what they are doing. But that's not really talked about a lot, which is curious. Target hair care line, I do have to say this, we did cover the decline in sales, and I will have to say that not even Taylor Swift can save Target. And it's a very sad thing that Target took a chance on Blake Lively, in my opinion, because they had $100 million to invest in a hair care line and they chose to invest in hers. And I think that's because she hyped up her popularity, because her social media accounts are overinflated. She doesn't have 42 actual million followers. What is it? Like 10% of that? They're all bots mostly. So what she probably did is she falsely hyped up her hair care line because her beverage line had what, like, was winning the popularity as far as engagement on mocktail brands or whatever. But she just made a bad choice because, again, Target doesn't have the most positive associations with certain communities. And we're not even through this whole list yet. And to note, Justin Baldoni has a lot more engagement on social media than Blake Lively does. What about the public attacks of private individuals? Have you heard about that? She was in Texas and someone took her photo or video of her in a public area and she ran after them, and then she had her security take pictures of a private citizen's license plate and car. Why is she doing that? That's kind of psychotic. Has anybody heard of another celebrity doing that? Other than Ryan Reynolds, because I've heard that Ryan Reynolds did the same thing to Paul Fadique, running after him, attacking a car. And then the last part of my list is the backroom deals. The I'm not going to release this song unless you do this. The I'm not going to sign my contract unless you do this. Let me fire this person so I can hire this person. And I will say, if Wayfair has to amend their privilege log, then Blake Lively needs to amend her privilege log and tell us why the hell that these three names, the PR company and the sound mixers and engineers, why are they under client attorney privilege like Colleen Hoover? Why? What was she going to sue them too? Or were they going to sue Wayfair? What is that? Okay, I think that's all I have for my more than 31 lists of why not to hire Blake Lively and the reputational damage that she has done to herself just based off of these factors. Because I, as a director, would consider all of this, because wouldn't I would have to insure her, because I have to ensure that she's safe and she's not going to be a liability against my insurance. And if she is going to be a liability against my insurance, I have to pay more insurance to hire her. And do I really want to take that risk if I'm a small studio? Let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, share. Let me know what else you want to hear. And I will see you tomorrow. Have a beautiful day, house guests. Thank you and take care.